Welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, thanks for watching. Well, let's examine the importance of international trade for Pennsylvania, but first, look out for the big pandemic scams. We'll get to all of that after these words.
Welcome to the fast-paced and unrehearsed weekly discussion featuring the leaders who help shape your world. Join us as we address the issues that impact you each and every day. This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Well, before I get into the subject for this week's program, I want to mention that Governor Wolf is scheduled to be on the program next week. I want to make that report to you. I'll tell you what, it's scams. It's one scam after another, and a number of them are related to the pandemic. Joining me is one of the leading consumer investigators, and he's an anchor at WGAL News 8. I'm, of course, referring to Mr. Brian Roach. Good morning, Brian.
Good morning, Terry. How are you? I
have no clue yet, but I'm going to find out after this interview. Look, you've been reporting regularly on these scams, many of them related to the pandemic, and the one that struck me as really unusual, fake vaccination cards. What's that all about?
You know, one of the most fascinating parts of my job is just when you think you've seen the latest and greatest scam, the scammers come up with something else. And I have to give them a tip of the hat. During this entire pandemic, they have come up with one scam after another. When the pandemic started more than a year ago, they had things. And now that we seem to be moving toward the end of it, they've come up with more scams. And the one is fake vaccination cards. We all know about the debate about vaccinations, people for, people against. And there's more discussion about, do you have to show your vaccination card to, I don't know, maybe go into a restaurant or go to get on an airplane, something like that. And for people who don't want to get the vaccine, this is quite a threat, if you will. You can go online because scammers are now selling fake vaccination cards for about $10 a pop that shows that you are vaccinated. And you know, it's a quick and easy, simple solution for people who don't actually want to get the shot in their arm. And yes, you can see them online. I've seen them online for about $10, sometimes $15. The information is filled in most cases. In some of the cases, the vaccination cards are blank. So yet our scammers have found another way to possibly make a dollar.
You know, one of the things that I did, I've had both vaccinations, is that I've taken a couple of pictures of it. So if they ask, you know, now I have the card, don't get me wrong, but I show them, you know, I can show them the picture or if they insist, I'll get the card out. It's in my wallet.
I was afraid, my friend, you were going to tell me that you posted it on social media, and I'm glad you didn't do that because that I see that with friends I have on social media, and I just want to, you know, yell at them. What are you doing? Why are you putting that up there? Because it does have personal information like your birth date. And a birth date, people think that's harmless information for a scammer. Wrong. If a scammer has your birth date, that can also be used against you to commit some kind of identity theft. So I'm glad you did not post it online, but what you did is a very good idea for other people to have it right there to show it in case you need to. That card, you know, it's small. I bet you some people are going to lose it. That brings me to another point I want to make. People are getting these cards laminated. They ask me, is that a good idea? I would say at this point, it's not a good idea because if you have to get a booster shot in the near future, how are you going to get that card out of the lamination?
So that's a great point.
Keep the card in your wallet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just keep it in my wallet, but if necessary, I can bring it up on the phone if they want to look at it. And, you know, who knows? All right. Amazon phone scams. We hear a lot about Amazon these days. Phone scams, is it fairly new? Is it a new scam?
Well, the phone part of it is new. You and I have talked about this on your program a few times. This started last year when we were all trapped in our houses, and people, of course, were ordering more things online. They couldn't go out shopping or they wouldn't go out shopping. So the scammers at the time started sending out a lot of text messages saying, your package is on the way. And we were all ordering so many things online. Many of us stopped to wonder, did I really order a package? And I'm going to click on the link to see what they're talking about. Well, that was the lure. If you clicked on the link, something could happen to your computer or your mobile device.
Right.
Now, they have moved away from the scam text messages toward phone calls. And they're calling people saying, your package is on the way. And they're trying to con people into giving credit card information. And in some cases, they're trying to get them to give up social security numbers just to make sure that is, in fact, the order that they placed. But the text messaging scams have now evolved into also using the phone.
Yeah, we're going to run to a break. I have one or two more questions on this subject. We'll get back to that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business, and by the Pennsylvania State Education Association and Partners for Public Education, bringing the power of a great education to our schools, our students, and our communities. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Highway Information Association, the go-to source to learn about transportation projects and issues. Please visit pahighwayinfo.org. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
I'm chatting with Brian Roach, anchor and consumer investigator with WGAL News 8. We're talking right now about Amazon phone scams. I tell you what, in my neighborhood, when I drive by, I see multiple packages on the front stoops and front porches of people. So even though the economy's opening up more and, people are going into stores more frequently than they did, let's say, 4 or 5 months ago, the packages being delivered are just humongous, if that's the right word.
Humongous is the right word. They're big packages, but they're also really small packages, Terry. We're ordering so many things online right now, down to, I know I placed an order the other day for socks, this big. The package showed up.
Gosh.
But I love to share this story recently. While I'm working in home here, I've taken over one of the bedrooms in my home on the second floor as my office. And a few weeks ago, I was working up there, and at one point I saw not one, not two, but 3 Amazon Prime trucks coming into my neighborhood and delivering packages. So the volume of online retail has just blown up. I think the last number I saw was somewhere in the neighborhood of 70% of what we're buying right now was the number around Christmas time, around the holidays. But maybe it's trailed off a little bit now that we're getting back to normal. Online ordering is a big deal.
Yeah, I've taken over the dining room table as my office, much to the dismay of my wife. We're all getting ingenious, I'll put it that way, during the pandemic. All right,
Indeed.
One of the other big pandemic-related scams has to do with travel as it begins to pick up. All the reports you get is that travel by airplane is certainly picking up, and the same with other forms of travel in our society.
Last year, if I recall correctly, I'm roughly about 20 to 25% of Americans went away on vacation. 20 to 25%. This year, I've seen multiple surveys that show at least 2/3 of Americans are going to take a vacation because they feel they deserve it, and rightly so. So a lot of scammers, of course, they always read the news and they know these things. All kind of scams are now surfacing online about hotels, trips. The one I saw recently was a cruise. Most cruise lines in America right now are shut down. They're not actually operating.
Right.
But try to get these plane tickets, or more importantly, hotels and rental units are a big source of money for scammers right now. They're putting these things on social media sites like Facebook or Twitter, and they're advertising homes for rent. And those are an instantaneous lure for people to say, oh, wow, that sounds like a great deal. But if you're not going through a reputable website where you can actually talk to someone and see the picture yourself, it's a dangerous thing. The other thing I'm seeing are free vacations. There's no such thing in life that's free, folks. I mean, that's the biggest lure in the world. My motto is always this: if it's free, you should flee, because they're going to get something out of you some way.
Say that again. I love that. If it's
free, you should flee.
You should flee. I'll tell you, The way that I've always done this, and I'm sure lots of our viewers are in the same, do the same thing, is I contact the airlines directly. I contact the hotel directly. I never wanted to deal with an intermediary, even before the pandemic and even before the scams were as numerous as they are now. And some people would say, well, you're being old-fashioned. Well, I think I'm being safe.
I think you're absolutely being safe. So many people right now will jump online because it's quick, it's easy, convenient, and they don't have to interact with another human being. Some people like that, but I applaud you for what you're doing, Terry. That's absolutely correct. You should contact the hotel directly. But more importantly, if you're renting a home or a property or some kind of condo at a beach, you need to be talking to someone, make contact with them, because it's very easy for me to grab a couple of pictures here online and then go and create a fake ad on any one of these vacation sites and give you an address to send me some money. And you and I may never speak. And I walk away with your thousands of dollars. Absolutely, you're doing the right thing by making direct contact with the hotel or the renter that's leasing out this property that you're looking at.
All right, Brian, I want to thank you for this update. Very, very important subject. All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about the importance of Pennsylvania and international trade. I don't think we've ever taken that subject up, but we're going to take it up next.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Cross-State Credit Union Association. Credit unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, go to ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Association of Pennsylvania State College and University Faculties, representing the faculty and coaches who are devoted to providing quality public higher education for Pennsylvania's college students.
Well, the first time for Pennsylvania Newsmakers, as I said earlier, guess what? We're going to talk about our state and international trade and why it's important. Sitting across from me to talk about this is Wilford Muskins. He's the U.S. Trade Representative from the Kutch region of India. Oh, my gosh. Well, quickly, in a minute, tell us something about your career.
Thank you. Thank you, Terry. It's a pleasure being here, as always. It's good seeing you, and I'm happy to have the opportunity to talk about international business. The Kutch region is a recent position I started just 2 months ago. It's a region in western India that I represent here in the U.S. to help create more business opportunities between the region and the state of Gujarat and Pennsylvania as a result of a partnership with the Pennsylvania Chamber. But really briefly about myself, I came here 21 years ago as an immigrant to Pennsylvania because I was hired by the Ridge administration. Mm-hmm. I started working for Governor Ridge in 99-2000 to help attract foreign direct investment to Pennsylvania. And I stayed with the state for 16 years. Worked as deputy secretary for 3 governors in international business development.
So you have some experience, is what you're saying, like your whole career.
I spent a lot of time in Harrisburg, and I live in Lancaster, so I'm kind of happy now. Not happy to be out of Harrisburg, but it's a little bit more variety.
All right, let's talk about the significance of international trade in our state.
Sure. International trade is really important for our gross state product, and it has over the years grown tremendously from about 4% of our gross state product to up to 8% of our gross state product. So that's just exports. Pennsylvania companies exporting to various countries around the world. The last numbers are about $37 billion of exports from Pennsylvania around the world. It's tremendous, yeah. And it's a big number, and it really has a big impact in terms of jobs, capital investment in our communities. And so it's important, I think, for the state, but also for private companies to be, and elected officials to be aware of that, how important it is for the state.
I'll tell you, I mean, the sheer size of that trade, what are some of the fields that it's in?
Well, first, the countries are the most important export markets for Pennsylvania. You look, the obvious ones are Canada, Mexico, of course, free trade agreement. but also China. China is actually, I think it's number 2 or number 3 right now in terms of export. It's one of the very few that has grown last year throughout the pandemic. Exports from Pennsylvania to China have actually grown.
Wow.
Well, if you look at Canada and Mexico, unfortunately, our exports decreased last year. And overall, exports decreased by about 12% last year. So last year we took a hit, obviously. Nobody's surprised by that.
Sure.
Every state did, the whole country did. But things are already starting to pick up. And
Any estimate about how many Pennsylvanians are employed in businesses? That's a tough question.
Well, I remember, this is a long time ago, but I think it's about close to 500,000 people in Pennsylvania that are directly affected or directly benefiting from international trade.
Sure.
And that's exporting, that's importing, and that's international investment into the state.
Yeah, well, let's talk about another subject, and it's something I know a little bit about, and that's international education. Students from all over the world come to our colleges and universities.
Yes.
Of course, many students in the United States end up going overseas, as we put it, to different countries. Why is that important?
It's really important because of the economic impact and, of course, the financial benefits for our universities and colleges. If you look at how many students from foreign countries come to Pennsylvania, I think it was about 50,000 last year, just for Pennsylvania.
50,000.
And the impact of that on the economy, and there's models they use to calculate that, is close to $2 billion.
Wow.
Just for Pennsylvania, $2 billion of financial impact of about 50,000 students coming to the state. And they go to the obvious places like Penn State, of course, University Park. They go to Drexel, they go to Penn, go to Carnegie Mellon University and Pitt. But then you have hundreds of other colleges and universities that are smaller, like Millersville and others.
We're going to run to a break. When we come back, I want to continue this subject, and we'll do that after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Medical Society. Inspired physicians committed to the good health of Pennsylvanians and the advancement of the practice of medicine.
Well, we're talking about international education now with Wilfred Muskin. He's a U.S. Trade Representative for the Kutch region in India, but he's also had a whole variety of experiences in the diplomatic corps working for governors in our state. I think I got that correct. All right. I mean, what's going on in colleges and universities right now, Wilfred, is that many of them have in place or are putting in place programs in international education. Various aspects of that. And so, and many colleges and universities, not just in Pennsylvania, but around the country, are actively recruiting students from many other parts of the world.
Yeah, and that is really important. I started a program when I worked for the state, actually under Governor Corbett. We started a program to recruit students from India. So we worked together with PASHI, together with ACUP, and with universities like Harrisburg University, with Millersville, Elizabethtown College, and others, to help a program to put somebody in place in India who's full-time there to promote Pennsylvania as a hub for education for Indian students. That person's still in place. So even today, we have about 10 Pennsylvania schools, universities and colleges, from Pittsburgh to Erie to Scranton and Philadelphia, that participate and that actively recruit students.
Now, do many of the students stay in Pennsylvania and work for companies here, dealing with, their home country, so to speak?
It's a mix. A lot of them want to try and come back to their home countries, whether they're Chinese students, which is the number one source, or Indian students, which is the number two source of students in Pennsylvania. A lot of them go back to their countries and start a business, or go back to their family business in a lot of cases. But we benefit from those students too. A lot of them become entrepreneurs. They start businesses in Pittsburgh or in Harrisburg or in Philadelphia, and they get support sometimes from the state through the Ben Franklin Technology Partners Program or other programs that are here to help technology companies. So there's job creation. Again, there's students coming here from overseas. They spend money, they pay full tuition in most cases, and then they stay here and create companies and create jobs. So there's really no downside to having that. Yeah.
Well, let's now talk about Pennsylvania and trade with India, something that you're a expert on. I mean, the political dynamic around the world is very dicey, with India and China and Iran, and it gets very complicated. So what's the current situation?
Well, India is a friend of the United States. They helped us last year when we went through tough times with the coronavirus, and now things are turned around. Unfortunately, with India being in a very bad situation, the U.S. is now helping India. And so that's what friends do, right? We help each other. We're both major markets. We depend on each other for a lot of imports and exports. India is the largest vaccine manufacturer in the world. And in spite of that, sadly, they currently have a lack of vaccines for their own population because they were going through a lower phase of the coronavirus just a few months ago. But trade with India goes throughout all sectors, the chemical sector, the pharmaceutical sector, the food processing and ag sector. And there's so much more potential because India has 1.4 billion inhabitants and people. There's a lot of young people, and a lot of those people become middle class at some point, and the middle class people are starting to buy products. And they include products from Pennsylvania. It could be Hershey bars or Zippo lighters or Harley-Davidson manufacturing, things made in Pennsylvania that we're able to sell in India. And again, that creates jobs right here in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I mean, that's something we don't think an awful lot about, just like we talked about a moment ago, international trade overall, and now we focus on one country and the significance of it. And it looks like, obviously we have the pandemic, and that obviously affects some of that, but it looks like trade with India is one of the most important of all our trading partners. Is that a yes or a no?
Well, India is about the 10th largest trading partner. Again, the biggest are China, Mexico, Canada.
Sure.
Then you have countries like Germany, the UK, those are really important. But India is in the top 10, 11, depending on the countries, depending on the years.
Sure.
Is a major trading partner for Pennsylvania, but it has so much potential. I think it has more potential.
Are there certain industries, as opposed to others, or businesses that this trade takes place in?
No, as I said, there's a lot of different sectors. It's multi-chemicals, pharmaceuticals, food and agriculture. Education is also an export. When you attract a student to Pennsylvania, that's considered an export of education services. Tourism. Just the last few years before COVID, of course, we had a huge increase in the number of tourists from India and from China as well, which brings money to Lancaster, to Philadelphia, to Pittsburgh, because we have a great state where there's a lot of tourism attractions. So we're lucky with that. We have this, and we have the ability to attract a lot of people, both on the student side, but also on the tourism and the business side.
I'll tell you, thanks for coming in and giving us some time. This is a truly important subject, and I'm glad we could deal with it. All right, we'll see you next week for another edition of Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.